Fred Richani, the Sports Courier Pro Wrestling, here to preview and predict WWE Clash in Italy 2026, the very first premium live event / pay-per-view ever in Italy, at least it comes to WWE and I guess maybe professional wrestling, taking place in Turin. This will be airing on Sunday, May 31st. So we'll go through the card. We'll talk about how we got here, and I'll make my prediction. So we have Becky Lynch versus Ruca. I think Ruca has been booked abysmally. I think that she has not looked all that great either in the ring. She's incredibly athletic. She's got a unique look, unique style, but she has been sloppy. She has not been able to hit that Soul Snatcher finisher, which is like a backwards moonsault into like a diamond cutter RKO off the top rope, or second top rope, whatever. She runs up and then does the flip and hits the RKO. Yeah, it's not been looking good. So she hasn't been that great in the ring so far. I think it's the lack of practice and reps. I think also main roster jitters a little bit. And also she hasn't been booked all that well. I mean, she put Io Sky to the limit. She pushed Liv Morgan to the limit to an extent, but she lost. So then she faces Becky Lynch, the Women's Intercontinental Champion, in a non-title match at Saturday night's main event. And she wins by disqualification. And they've been doing a better job. And with all due respect to referee Jessica Carr, she does a great job, but they've been doing more to build up Becky Lynch versus Jessica Carr for, I feel like, the last 2 years than they have to build up not only this particular match coming up, but also Liv Morgan's title run, Liv Morgan's previous title run, Stephanie Vicare's title run. Like, what are we doing here? And shout out to Becky Lynch. She's putting in the work. I'm sure she's the one who, as a top star, is advocating to get women more opportunities, get the Intercontinental title more love, because WWE's booking with women pretty damn inconsistent. So anyway, Ruca not been booked all that well. And now she has an Intercontinental Championship match against Becky Lynch. And on one hand, I think, man, Ruca's a new main roster star. She's young. Why not give her the title? Make it a big upset. It'd be really cool. On the other hand, I kind of feel like, and I don't know if the modern WWE fan reads too much into this, but it just seems like she'd be a lame duck champion because she lost to Liv Morgan. She lost to Io Sky. She won by disqualification against Becky Lynch. They couldn't even give her a non-title win, like by pinfall or submission. And she hasn't looked that great in her matches on the main roster so far. I hate to do it, but if they could beat Javon Evans a million times, and I don't think they should be beating Javon Evans a million times. I think Javon Evans should have won the IC title on Raw, and it's pathetic that he's I think 0-15 or 0-16 in title matches if you count NXT. Up to this point in his career, it's insane. If they could fumble with Javon Evans so far, I think Ruca can survive one fumble here in a title match. I think Becky Lynch wins, and I think you really got to give Soul some reps on these house shows coming up. I think you got to give her some actual wins by pinfall. I think the poor girl needs a finisher that does not require so much effort and coordination outside of the Soul Snatcher. Save the Soul Snatcher for like big events like PLEs, WrestleMania, whatever. And yeah, I guess I got Becky Lynch winning this one. I wouldn't be surprised if Soul won, because keep in mind, they did give the IC title to Maxine Dupree of all people. And look, Maxine's worked really hard and she put in the work, but she's never going to be mixed up with Becky Lynch or Bayley in terms of in-ring ability. And in fairness to her, much like a lot of the other women's title runs, she won the title. They barely did anything with her. She didn't get a lot of reps, and she immediately lost it back to Becky Lynch. So even if Soul wins here, I can't say I have a lot of hope right now. We all should note here, by the way, that while this show is going to air on ESPN Unlimited, which is still not available through YouTube TV, it is going to have the first hour air on ESPN. So first hour of Clash in Italy airs on ESPN, and I don't want to speculate, but they keep putting these first hours of these PLEs on ESPN, as in the actual cable network most people get with cable without an additional subscription. And for shows that have like a 5-match card, it can't be good for their numbers. I don't know. I don't think they should have left Peacock. They got more money, but I have a feeling that if numbers aren't up to snuff, that Disney is going to look at the balance sheet and be like, you know what? Let's see if we can exit our deal. I mean, they did that with MLB, so I would not be surprised if they did that with WWE as well. Rhea Bloody Ripley against Jade Cargill, WrestleMania 42 rematch. I was at WrestleMania 42. This was a pretty good match, one of Jade Cargill's best matches up to this point. I think this will be a pretty good match. I got Rhea retaining. I don't see a reason why Jade should regain it unless they're building a trilogy. But it's been a while since Rhea's been champion. She's one of the biggest stars in the company. I think you got to roll with her, and I think Rhea wins this one. We'll see what happens with BFAB and Michin and Jade, because Jade did say on ESPN that the reason she lost her title in the first place was because of BFAB and Michin. So will they turn those two face and maybe they go into the women's tag team division? We shall see. All right. We also have Brock Lesnar versus Oba Femi, another WrestleMania 42 rematch. That was one of the best star-making jobs I've seen in a long time for WWE at WrestleMania 42. Oba Femi just destroyed Brock Lesnar. Brock takes off his gloves, his boots, he cries, he leaves the ring. But according to multiple reports, most notably WrestlingObserver.com, Brock is not retired. And one of the reasons cited was, hey, there's a huge show in the hometown, or his previously a college hometown that made him famous, Minneapolis, when he was at the University of Minnesota. There's a huge 2-night SummerSlam going on in August. We need to sell tickets. Brock's not retiring yet. So fast forward 29 days after Oba destroys Brock, where he's just doing a bunch of open challenges, not even challenging for the title. Brock comes back, hits him with 4 F5s. Apparently, according to Paul Heyman, he is retired, but he's still going to wrestle Oba Femi, which to me kind of hurts future retirement stipulations, because yes, AJ's retired and Cena's retired, but people are going to remember, well, Brock took off his boots and his gloves and he came back in 29 days, no less. Never mind the fact that I just don't really like Brock Lesnar as a person. Named in that trafficking lawsuit from Janelle Grant. No, he's not the one being sued, but he's named like 40-something times. And before people get on me, because people like to get on me about this stuff, imagine if your neighbor or your mailman or your local butcher or your kid's school teacher was named in a lawsuit like that once, let alone 40-something, 50-something times. I don't think you'd feel really comfortable around that person, let alone with your kids. From a human being aspect, I don't understand it. If WWE is trying to avoid any further legal ramifications, and Lord knows they have some with the shareholder lawsuit, as reported by Brandon Thurston, postwrestling.com, wrestlenomics.com. You can read up on that. I don't get it. I don't feel like Brock means much to business. Like, it was okay. It was great. He put over Oba Femi, but even under normal circumstances where he's not being mentioned in a major lawsuit with horrific allegations, the guy is almost 50, put over Oba clean as a sheet in a couple minutes at WrestleMania, and he just comes back. So if I have to put my WWE brain on and think how they think, God forbid, I got Brock Lesnar unfortunately winning this one. And I got Brock Lesnar going into SummerSlam facing Gunther for the world title, or maybe even not for the world title, but Gunther retiring him in Minneapolis and him getting yet another standing ovation and send off, even though he seemed to have the perfect send off at WrestleMania. So there you go. Unless they want to do, Here Comes the Pain, retirement tour merch, which I guess they could do. But yeah, unfortunately, I see Oba losing this one, which sucks. I would not have that happen. I would be having Oba challenge for the title already, strap a rocket to him. But as they've done with Javon and other folks, it's just not his turn. Even though you got to strike the iron while it's hot. We also have, of course, 2 world title matches. So we have the Tribal Combat match, which is a glorified no DQ match. Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. WWE, thinking WWE brain, Roman could win. They'll say, well, Jacob looked great in defeat, but he lost again. Back-to-back title matches, losing. Not a good look for Jacob Fatu. He could be back, obviously, but he's a guy with momentum. He could do what I predicted for Backlash that didn't happen, which is the Usos turn on Roman Reigns, and Jacob Fatu becomes the new tribal chief for now until Roman comes back at SummerSlam, and boom, you have a SummerSlam main event. I personally like that idea. If you are going to reheat the bloodline drama and you are going to write the Usos as subservient little guys, even though they beat up Roman Reigns and stood up to him a couple years back in that hot bloodline angle, if you're going to do all that, if you're going to throw all that away and reheat the bloodline and kind of go from square one, you might as well have a new tribal chief. So I'd like to see Jacob Fatu, and I'd actually love to see Jacob Fatu just win straight up clean, but it is WWE. There's always some tomfoolery involved. So you know what? I'm going to predict the Usos turn on Roman and Jacob Fatu wins the title. That way, reigns supreme for a while, and then Roman comes back and you do a trilogy at SummerSlam, or dare I say even Hell in a Cell, or maybe they do Hell in a Cell at SummerSlam. Who knows? But that's what I personally like to see happen. And you know what? I'm going to go that way because I did mention the shareholder lawsuit, and some people may say, well, What does that have to do with the storylines? Well, funny you should ask, kids, because if WWE does lose a shareholder lawsuit, or at least is deemed liable for certain allegations, right? Which, by the way, a judge already determined that Nick Khan, one of the WWE execs, did delete signal messages, which is illegal as a publicly traded company. They could be on the hook for millions of dollars, possibly tens of millions of dollars. And for a company that has been cost cutting, for a parent company that does happen to have a lot of debt, I would not be surprised if they're like, you know what, Roman, I know you're available for the spring and summer. We're going to keep you away for a while and not really pay you your full rate. I would not be surprised. Do I think Asuka just left because of a personal issue? No, I think Asuka probably went back to Japan for a bit. Also, because maybe TKO doesn't want to pay. And there have been reports from Wrestling Observer and other outlets that, and even from Kevin Nash, where people have had to take or have been offered to take a 50% pay cut. I would not be surprised just from a pure financial decision that it'd be saying, you know what? Yeah, this Jacob Fatu title win would be cool, but it would also be cheaper. I think Jacob Fatu could be a draw, obviously. I'm very high on him. But I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So, yeah, I think that could play into it as well. And I'm going to say Jacob Fatu. I hope it happens. And then we have Gunther versus Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE Championship, even though there's already another world title, which makes no sense why it's undisputed. This should be a phenomenal match. And I think Cody Rhodes is a guy with a lot of pride. I think this is a guy who wants to always deliver the main events. He usually does when he's not bogged down by never-ending feuds with Solo Sikoa and other crap. So I think they'll have a great match. I think Cody Rhodes is keeping an eye on his old company, AEW, and sees that Double or Nothing had just an amazing showing, top to bottom. Great show. If you haven't checked it out, you should. And I think he's going to want to have a great match. And I think either way, these guys would have had a great match, but I think they're, especially now, going to bring something more to the table. And ultimately, I think Gunther wins. I think Gunther wins. And I think Gunther goes on to SummerSlam to either wrestle Randy Orton and try to retire him, or he goes and wrestles Brock Lesnar and does retire him. I don't see Randy Orton retiring just yet. And I know Randy Orton's technically a heel, but I think there's going to be something in the works here. You never know. You never know. Maybe they do something where, I mean, there's King of the Ring, right? I think King of the Ring's still coming up, or Night of Champions, or whatever. Like, you could do a deal where Gunther wins. You set up a Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes match where Randy Orton this time beats Cody Rhodes to become number one contender. Maybe even take him out with the punt again. Although, take it easy on Cody's poor eye. And then Gunther can go on, face Randy Orton, career versus title. Orton wins number 15. And then you could eventually do the final chapter of Cody versus Randy. Although that match at WrestleMania was not that great. Apparently, Randy came in hurt, and he sure looked like it. So I'm going to go with Gunther. So overall, here are my picks, kids. I got Becky Lynch retaining the IC title, Jacob Fatu upsetting Roman Reigns for the WWE World Heavyweight title via Usos interference. I have Brock Lesnar unfortunately beating Oba Femi. I have Rhea Ripley beating Jade Cargill. So yeah, I got at least two world title changes. So I'll talk to y'all soon. Enjoy Clash in Italy. And yeah, hopefully I'm wrong about Oba Femi